Hello, everyone, and welcome to HR's Path to Paperless Hiring. Thank you for bearing with us at the beginning. We had some technical difficulties, but we're up and running now. My name is Joanna Susars, and I'm the technical writer in the Laserfiche marketing department. And it is my privilege to be joined by Linda Malmberg, who will be sharing with us how her organization automated the hiring process with Laserfiche. Before we begin, there are a few housekeeping items I'd like to cover. First, I've taken the liberty of muting all of you to eliminate any background noise from other lines. If you have any technical questions, please feel free to use the chat box on the middle right side of the screen, and someone on our team can help you troubleshoot. We've allocated some time for Q&A at the end of the presentation, and please feel free to submit questions at any time during the presentation in the Q&A box at the bottom right portion of the screen. Then press send. We won't be able to answer questions immediately, but we'll be sure to answer them at the end. All right, so let's get started. Before we move on to the main part of the presentation, I would like to talk a little bit about the Laserfiche Solution Exchange. So the Solution Exchange is a publicly available website where anyone can read and view examples of how other Laserfiche users have configured and optimized their Laserfiche system. Users share screenshots, snippets of code, and step-by-step instructions on how they have set up their individual solutions. The purpose of the Solution Exchange is to give other Laserfiche users ideas on what they can do with their Laserfiche systems. That way, they don't have to recreate the wheel themselves. The articles on the site can be filtered by 3 different categories: by Laserfiche product. So if you're looking for different ways that other users use Laserfiche workflow, by business process, so if you're looking for articles about case management or accounts payable, and by industry, such as by articles submitted by users in government or higher education. And one of the most popular articles on the Solution Exchange, with hundreds of views since it was first published, is how Steinhafels took HR completely paperless. And here, to walk through their solution in person, let me introduce Linda Malmberg, Director of Human Resources at Steinhafels, the #1 furniture and mattress dealer in Wisconsin.
Thank you, Joanne. I appreciate the introduction.
So now Linda will walk through how Steinhafels uses HR in their, uses Laserfiche in their HR department. So,
Joanna, you need to give me control to share my screen.
That's right. There you go. You should be able to share it now.
Good afternoon, everyone, or morning, as the case may be. My name is Linda Malmberg, and I'm the Senior Human Resource Manager Director at Steinhafels. We use Laserfiche throughout our company now, not just in HR or payables. But some of the things I'm going to cover today is why we did this. One of the main reasons and the biggest driver within our organization is because to have continued to generate paper and try and analyze data on paper, I would have had to increase my staff just to manage the amount of paper that came into our office. The decisions for our organization were driven by economics and the need for efficiency, and I think this is going to become more apparent in the next couple of slides. So, who is Steinhafels? We're geographically southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois. We have 10 full-line furniture stores, soon to be 11, 9 retail stores, 1 manufacturing factory, 721 employees, and we've been in business 80 years. Now, there are pluses and minuses to working for a company that's been in business for 80 years. If any of you have worked for old established organizations, I'm sure you've heard this statement, but we've always done it that way. I had my share of challenges when I first presented the idea of going completely paperless. It had a big investment and a long implementation period, and I had to financially justify it to the owners of my company. On the next slide, I'm going to cover the arguments that I used to get it approved. Lost paperwork. inconsistent orientation practices, lack of confidentiality, misfiled paperwork, inconsistent execution of documentation, specifically disciplinary documentation, delayed paperwork, paperwork that was sitting on someone else's desk waiting to be reviewed and maybe would get to my HR department 2 or 3 weeks later. The lack of transparency. One manager did not know what another manager had already taken care of, especially with training or direction or disciplinary action with regard to employees. Basically, we had more issues than Reader's Digest. To kind of give you an idea of what our HR payroll office looked like, this is a picture of the big fireproof file cabinets that are currently in the payroll office, and they still exist there today. However, next week I have been given permission by my owners to take all the files in each of these drawers and shred them. We converted all of our personnel files and now store them in Laserfiche. Because it has such robust security, I can slice and dice that security to allow managers to see what they need to see and not see what I don't want them to see. The upside or the downside of paper is your investment in files and, in our case, fireproof filing cabinets. Each of these filing cabinets today can be purchased for about $4,200 a piece. So I have $8,400 of my company's money sitting in 2 fireproof file cabinets right there. Once we do get rid of all the personnel files they currently hold, I'm probably going to put them on Craigslist and sell them for about $1,000 a piece. But when you think of paper, I have 24 of these fireproof file cabinets throughout my corporate office. That's a lot of dollars invested in one spot. So we decided on Laserfiche as the solution to all our problems because it allowed us to create one platform that allowed information to be shared between locations, managers, and systems, and created a lot of transparency throughout our company. We're going to start at the beginning of the process. In the previous slide, I stated that we needed to create one platform for managing all of the information in the HR department. That included getting rid of old systems that did not talk to each other, such as the HR Smart Applicant Tracking System, which did not communicate to my HRIS system, which did not communicate to my Hughes LMS system. So we recreated and replaced our applicant tracking system with Laserfiche. You can initiate a job requisition, cross-post to job boards, receive employment applications, track applications, extend offers, and onboard employees, all with using Laserfiche. For me, a picture is always worth 1,000 words. So graphically, here is how the system flows for applicant tracking, execution, onboarding, and into becoming a regular employee with my company. This next slide is a picture of the job requisition that a hiring manager initiates when they need to add or replace personnel. They fill out this form, click the Submit button. Once the form is submitted, it's then routed to our hiring manager for review. The form is in an open format, so spelling mistakes, job descriptions, and other items can be changed or corrected before it's finalized. The recruiter is notified via an email that there's a job requisition that needs review. An embedded web link takes them right back to the exact requisition that needs their attention. And it's an automated process. Once the requisition is approved, a copy is saved to the directory, and all applications are tied back to that requisition within our directory. We use template information to manage the requisition states and cross-posting functions. So we have drop-down boxes here, so we can choose to cross-post it to Monster or not, or choose to cross-post it to Career Builder or Milwaukee Jobs or all three. And the cross-posting is something that happens automatically within our system. Shown in this slide is an example of what it looks like once it's automatically posted to the job boards, and you'll see the delivery driver Kenosha job requisition posted in this screen. All applicants fill out a Laserfiche employment application to apply for the job. It's a form that has public view rights and can be filled out from any web browser anywhere. So they can fill it out from their iPad, their desktop, their telephone. All they need to do is click on the web link, which is embedded in our job posting. In this slide here is an example of our employment application. It's pretty long, and after coming back from Laserfiche this last January, one of the things that's on my wish list for this next year is to redo this form so that it's in tabs with shorter pages so that applicants can navigate the application easier. But this is the way it exists today. Once an applicant clicks the Submit button, workflow takes over and the form is routed to the hiring manager that originally filled out the job requisition. The hiring manager is notified via an email that they have an application that they need to review, and then from their iPad or form, they can open up the desk. Let me go back one. They can open up the desk or the application, make a decision whether that person will be advanced or will be rejected, and then click Submit and save that template information, and then again workflow takes over to manage the application. So if a applicant, and this is an example of the link that my managers see when they get a job requisition. Once the manager makes a decision on that job application, an email is sent to the applicant letting them know that they've either been advanced or to thank them very much for considering Steinhoffel, but that we would be moving on with better candidates. In this slide here, this is a snapshot of our repository showing the job requisition and applicants that are tied to it. Applicant statuses are tracked using metadata, so we can always see where each applicant is in the process. So in this slide, you'll see prospect, Albert, prospect, Andrew. Those prospects mean that we have moved them on to the next step in getting a job at our company, and we would probably do a phone screen next for those people that had been advanced. And then down below, you see that each of these individuals has uploaded a resume, and that resume will follow with their application as they move through the process. The statuses can be found in a drop-down box on the hiring template. When an applicant does not qualify, as I stated before, the reject status is selected and the application is saved. An email is then sent to the applicant after a 24-hour delay letting them know that we will not be moving forward with their application and thanking them for consideration. Their application is then moved to a rejected folder, and only the qualified applicants remain tied to the requisition. If an application is moved forward, again, their status is changed to prospect, and the application is renamed and again stored with the requisition. This is how our repository and requisition looks with a lot of applications in it. Once a hiring decision is made, the status is changed to hired and a whole new workflow begins to kick off. In this, I managed to take a screenshot of our repository with an applicant that had been rejected. And We have about a 10-minute delay on this process, so it was just a lucky happenstance I could get this screenshot. But after a brief delay, her application will be moved out of there and into the rejected folder. Once the status is updated, demographic information is extracted from the application and inserted into a SQL database. The information in the SQL table will then be used for the remainder of our workflow activities. First, the hiring manager is sent a new hire email that contains a badge number for the employee that they have just selected to hire. The badge, and they are also sent the new hire form. So the hiring manager inserts the badge number into the new hire form, and that triggers all sorts of data to be pulled back into that form: name, address, telephone number, what job they applied for, are all filtered into this new hire form. Next, once that form is submitted, the new personnel file is created within the repository, and the following steps begin to happen. Workflow copies the personnel file template and replicates the required subfolders. The metadata attached to the personnel file is populated with their badge number, name, hire date, and then Workflow finds the original employment application in the repository along with its resume and puts it in the employment documents folder. The personnel file is then renamed and moved to the new hired subfolder in the HR directory. Other things also occur in parallel. An email is sent to the hiring manager asking if the job requisition can now be closed. The employment application is renamed to a hired status with the name and the date. The prospect is sent a welcome email containing their start date and a description of the documents that they'll need on their first day of orientation. And an email tailored to each department's specific information needs is created and sent to each department so the employee setup process can begin for IT, phones, security, things of that nature. And then the process terminates. And all of this goes on behind the scenes with Workflow the minute the hiring manager submits that new hire form with the badge number. So why do we do a new hire form too besides an employment application? We can mine information off of our employment applications and different information off of our hiring forms. We take as much information off the hiring forms that we can, but things like salary, things like schedule, things like which days per week cannot be mined from the employment application. So we kind of replicate that work included in the new hire form. So again, that information can be pulled out and sent to departments that would need to make decisions on that new employee's schedule, what type of security access they would need, are they going to need other company equipment. So we do a two-step process, mining information off of the employment application, transitioning it to a new hire form, and then adding additional information. Our new hire form looks like this. And again, this is just a snapshot. It's a pretty long form. A lot of the information is mined off of the employment application, their start date, their time, their PIN number, how they're going to be paid, salary or hourly, what system accesses they need, all of that is put onto the new hire form. So the final product looks like this. The personnel file has been created. It looks like the structure you see shown here. It's got a confidential folder, disciplinary folder, a documents, performance reviews, training, and the employment documents folder contains two forms, the new hire form, the application, and if they've given us a resume, it's also in that folder under that person's personnel file. This is what the workflow looks like that sends all of the information off of that new hired application to the various departments. And again, it gives the departments what they need to know and what sometimes is more important, what they do not need to know. So shown here are two templates that we use in our hiring process. We use template data to manage personnel records and I-9 forms. Additionally, the template data is used to automatically manage the number of documents in the system. The I-9 forms are automatically purged when the template data triggers workflow to delete those records, so it keeps our repository clean. Basically, this allows us to keep what we need and eliminate stuff from the repository that's just junk. After departmental setup, Laserfiche forms are used to move an employee through the onboarding process and then to memorialize the interactions with each employee that affect their employment. So W-2s, acknowledgement forms for employee handbooks, acknowledgement forms for our drug testing policy, acknowledgement forms that they've received certain training, harassment training, MSDS safety training. We use forms extensively to acknowledge and validate that we have completed all of our processes with that employee so that they know our rules, they know our culture, they know our company, and that we've onboarded them effectively. The biggest challenge that you're going to have using the biggest advantage you will have to using the Laserfiche repository for your applicant tracking and personnel records is the flexibility to store all types of data in the system. Anybody who has been involved in an HR litigation with the EEO, with your state's equal rights divisions, with OSHA, knows the importance of being able to track down all the information, all of your touches to an employee. So Laserfiche not only allows you to store forms which validate your training process and your rules, it allows you to store complaints. You can scan in documents that you receive for this employee, garnishments, child support orders, things of that nature. It allows you to save emails that an employee has sent you regarding certain topics, and it allows you to save voicemails. Having the ability to have all of your information regarding one employee and your interactions with them in one spot is huge. It's absolutely huge. It will save you tons of time and lost records and will go a long way towards you getting all the data you need to win or prove your case. But Laserfiche, we have not limited Laserfiche to HR applicant tracking, employment applications, and personnel records. We now use it in our advertising department for customer testimonial releases. We use it for expense reimbursement forms. We use it at the store level for quarterly metric tracking for our sales associates. We use it for training. We use it for our wellness coaching. We use it in our billing department. This Laserfiche forms workflow and the repository has been rolled out and fully integrated across all of Steinhaffel's various departments, and people come to me a lot saying, can we do this? So then you come to a crossroad in your HR process. What are you going to do with your old paper files? So basically there are really two strategies. You either leave them alone or you convert them. We opted to convert them, and we used QuickFields to speed up the process of converting those paper files. Before you begin tackling converting your paper files, one of the things you need to do is clean the junk out of your personnel files. I had files 25 years old that half of them were information that was not relevant to the employment relationship today. So clean the junk out of your paper files. Closed garnishments, unemployment verifications, old benefit forms for plans you don't even have anymore. Keep only what is relevant to their employees today. Out of 625 employee files that we converted, we removed 2 full-size shredding bins of junk out of our personnel files. The next step in converting your personnel files is to organize your documents. And I would caution you, I did a lot more subcategories than what I'm showing here. And when we got done with this whole process, I went, why? The number of times in the year and several months since we've converted those documents that we've gone back and looked at those old paper scan documents is minimal. Maybe once every 2 or 3 months you'll go back and maybe need to reference a paper document. You think it's going to happen more often, but as you roll forward and as you find that it's not a lot. So keep your subcategories of documents that you want to scan to a minimum. I had 13 subcategories. If I was to do it today, I would balance that down to just the 5 that you see here. So we used quick fields to sort our personnel files, upload them into the repository, sort the documents, put the documents into the different folders, and it was really fast and easy. We created one employee identifier page, and in our company we use a badge number for an employee identifier. And then beneath that identifier page, we put our sort pages. So one sort page was employment documents, and underneath that was all the documents that we wanted in the employment documents folder. Then was training and all the documents we wanted in the training folder. It took us quite a while because unless you can allocate and jettison all of your work to just dive in and get this all done, we finally had to resort to hiring one temp person, and it took us about 4 months to complete converting 600 files. So make sure that you allocate enough time and that you don't go in thinking this is going to be a really fast, quick, easy process. We consistently named all of our paper files so we could differentiate them from the other files in our HR files. So everything with paper is called back file. And you see back file benefit forms, back file employment documents. It at least subsorts down what we may be looking for when we're going into a back file to search for a document or see if we have other information there. The last hurdle is security. How do you keep other managers from accessing information they don't have a need to know and getting the information that we do? We use groups. So a manager has to belong to a group to be able to see an employee within that group. And it was a little putsy to set up in the beginning. It probably took 4 hours to set up 45 different managers in their groups. But once it's done, if I replace a manager, I just delete them from the group and add the new manager to the group of the employees that they need to see. And from there on out, managing your security becomes very minimal. Laserfiche has got really robust security. So for instance, somebody logging into accounting can only see this folder. Somebody logging into store management can only see job requisitions and only their employees' folders within the employee file. The receiving department can only see their folder. HR, of course, can see everything in the repository because we are the gatekeepers to the electronic forms that we keep. So where do you begin? Because this can be a daunting task. You need to get everybody in your department involved, all the stakeholders. Write down your current problems, what you want to fix, and then really with big pieces of paper, and we put them all over my office, you kind of create a flow chart. How do you want your recruiting to start? What should managers do? What should you do? How should it be cross-posted? How should applications write? You start to answer these questions and you build a big flow chart. And then when you're done, you've got a process. You can hand it to your VAR, and believe me, listen to your VAR. They talked me out of a lot of things that they said really weren't value added and talked me into a couple things based on their experience that really helped a lot. And let them create your process. I really wish I had a picture of my office during this process. It was a mess with all of these big pieces of paper all over the wall. One of the things that people often ask me is why we were successful is because Steinhafels as a company, as a culture, we always dive in and become experts. We don't ever rely on somebody else. To the best of our ability, we get in there, we learn software, we become experts so that we can solve our own problems. I had a great willingness from my owners to give me money and to give me time to build this. And I was able to really grow my company and grow the number of employees that the HR team has to manage, along with all the other departments that come to us for Laserfiche products now, and I've not had to add a single body. So it was a big money saver to my company, and I have a great team of people willing to dive in and learn everything. So that is the end of my presentation right now. Any questions?
All right, thank you so much, Linda, for such a wonderful presentation. So now it's time for the Q&A. So if you haven't already, please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So we already have a couple questions coming in. So here's a question for you, Linda. How do you auto-post the requisition to job sites like monster.com?
That was coordinated through my VAR, Cities Digital, but Monster has an FTP site, and Monster just simply gave cities what the file laid out needed to be for their FTP site, and Workflow just goes and cross-posts and puts it in the FTP site along with all the information that Monster needs to put it in the right categories and the right sections, and then it just posts. Monster sweeps their FTP site probably every minute for new postings.
All right, so another question, can we get a copy of the slides? You can get we'll email everybody who registered a recording of the webinar and the slides after this. So next question, who did the majority of the mapping configuration of the human resources and other processes? Was it the internal individual or your VAR?
No, it was my team. It was myself, my recruiting manager, my HR manager, my assistants, and really we wrote it out for our VAR step by step by step. Number one, fill out a requisition. This is what the requisition needs to have on it. And we created all of the forms that you saw were created by Steinhafels personnel. We created that internally. Again, we did not let, and we learned together. We made some mistakes, and the VAR would look over our work, and he'd go, yeah, but, you know, you need to do this or that. And they really taught us as we moved along how to fish for ourselves.
Okay, so next question, how do you do your EEO reporting?
My EEO reporting is done out of my HRIS system.
Okay.
So it's not done out of Laserfiche.
All right. So how do you track things like job reference checks, background checks, etc.?
Background checks are a very good question. Our background check agency actually receives, we have a template data field that we change to request background, and it actually sends the applicant's email address and their name to our applicant, to our background checking company, and then the background checking company takes that email and pushes it out to the applicant. The applicant fills out an authorization online for them to do a background check, and then of course the results are emailed to us when they're complete, and we check their website. We don't store any criminal or background check history in Laserfiche. I let it remain on my background vendor's website.
Okay, so next question. Do you have a preset template that is used? I assume that's the document template.
Yes, it is. It's part of the applicant management template that I showed them. There are other fields in there that I just did not go over. But yes, background checks are in there as an automated process.
Okay. So next question. How do you store payroll records?
Right now, payroll records are just simply scanned and dropped into the repository. I am replacing my payroll system this year, and one of the things that I'm talking to two of the vendors that I've narrowed it down to is coordinating a link directly from HR or from Laserfiche personnel records into the HRIS system. And we're talking about pushing data back and forth because I'll now have the ability to, because my current HRIS system sits on a Fox Pro database engine rather than a SQL engine. So now that I'm going to change that piece, I'll be able to integrate or at least create links between these two sources.
Awesome. So next question, is there an e-signature feature with Laserfiche completing onboarding paperwork? If not, how are you handling this?
The answer is no, we are not using e-signature. And there was a debate. A lot of this is going to rely on your state law for electronic signatures. In Wisconsin, the state law is, I think, maybe one sentence long. It says if it was the person's intent to sign this document, in other words, if they were willing to do it and they typed their name in, that constitutes an electronic signature. So at least in Wisconsin, you know, if somebody typing their name into a box where it says, please type your name in the box if you agree to this and that you authorize this as a valid signature using a mouse or keypad and click submit and you're done, that holds legally, that holds up in the state of Wisconsin. And we've actually had our electronic Laserfiche forms used by Wisconsin unemployment. Didn't even bat an eye, didn't even question the integrity. One of the other things that we do to ensure integrity is we email to our new employee a copy of every document they authenticated. It's hard for somebody to argue they didn't authenticate a document when you can show somebody that they received an email copy of it.
And to actually build upon that, Laserfiche Forms does have the option of using signing forms too, if you did want to go that route. So if anybody else out there wants to go that route. So next question, how did the top management justify the project at the very beginning?
Well, I either had to hire additional personnel, and I wasn't kidding. I needed another full-time body, or we could go to Laserfiche. So after you figure you're going to pay $40,000 for a really competent HR person, now you're going to pay your 7.61% of FICA. Now you're going to have to, in my case, I would have had to reconfigure my office and spend another $8,000 to $10,000 to outfit a work cube. I would have had to buy another computer. I would have had to do this. After you start putting in all of those soft costs, benefits, workers' comp, unemployment costs, FICA matching, plus the cost of infrastructure, additional equipment. You know, I came out just shy of $80,000. And I said, I can either do this or you guys can let me do this. And they said, not a problem. You can do Laserfiche.
Nice. So did you also complete the I-9 and E-Verify with Laserfiche is the next question.
The I-9, we do not do E-Verify. That's done by our background check company.
Okay.
I-9s we do with Laserfiche, and it is the only paper form left that I have not converted yet. So we upload our I-9s with a copy of their driver's license, whatever they give us, and then we store it in another folder in the repository, and we attach template data. So let's go through the termination process, because that's all done electronically too. Let's say an employee leaves us. Well, Laserfiche, we do a termination form. Once the termination form is executed, workflow kicks off again. It goes and finds the employee's file. It moves it to a terminated section. The terminated section is sorted by alpha character, so it moves it to within the appropriate alpha character of the person's last name. It goes and finds their I-9. It populates a termination date in their I-9, and then it calculates a disposal date for that I-9, and then it sends an email to all the departments notifying them that this employee has left. So security is taken down, voicemail is taken down, network access, email, all of those other things happen automatically when a termination occurs.
So building on that, there's another question. What happens when an applicant applies to a different position? So I guess they've applied before.
We simply, well, it's a little tricky. What we do is we have to change, there's a requisition number within that template data. So we grab, and it doesn't happen often. We don't store applications, so if you want to apply for a new job, it's not like you log in, you find your old application, you apply for a new one. We make you fill out a new form. So, but if somebody says, hey, I don't think this guy is right for a delivery job, but he might be right for this job, and it's open, we'll grab that employee's application and their resume. We'll just drag and click it to the new requisition. We'll change the requisition number on the template data, and we haven't run into any problems with that yet. It seems to work. It happens so sporadically that it wasn't worth building a system for, because we just drag and move and change a rec number.
So do you have a preset template that is used for job postings to all external sites like Monster, Craigslist, etc.?
I don't know what the question means. The requisition is the template, kind of. And yes, it's the same for all sites. And Monster, you know, if we opt to pick Monster, the cross posting, there's parameters that happen in the background that grab the information that Monster needs versus posting to Career Builder. They have a different information they need, and all of that has been programmed behind the scenes to just automatically drop those files onto each vendor's FTP site.
Okay. And then another question, what is your HRIS system? Is it developed in-house or commercial?
My HRIS system is Sage software, and it's their Abra product. That's the one I'm phasing out because it's on a FoxPro database, and Microsoft has decided it's no longer going to support or enhance the FoxPro database, so I am going to eventually need to move my system. I'm going to go to another in-house system because it costs, and I could go on a whole nother rant on this, it costs 3 to 4 times as much to outsource your payroll as it does just to bring it in-house. And after my bad experience with a third-party payer and having to spend 6 years correcting filings because they couldn't get it right, I just do it in-house, which was probably a longer answer than they needed.
All right, next question. Did you create subfolders for each employee like tax forms, I-9 medical file, etc.?
If they're talking, I-9s are stored separately. in a different area of the repository, because if you ever have an NIS audit, if you put I-9s in your personnel files, you now open up your personnel files for them to be able to look through. So we store our I-9s outside of the personnel file in a completely separate folder. But no, we don't sub-sort our forms. The old back files we kind of put all together, but the current medical forms are done through Laserfiche forms. So they're stored as its own form.
Q&A.
Yes. Hello?
Oh. Hello? Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, yeah, so the next question, with the forms that the employee has to sign, are those forms provided to the employees via a web-facing link to the forms?
No. No, they're emailed.
Okay.
Unless, the employee always has the option of getting an email. We have a Going Green initiative, so probably about 85% of our employees have said to us, we want to receive company information via email. So we embed their email address into a SQL table, and anytime they complete a form with their badge number, it automatically pulls their email address and emails them a form, emails them the completed form. So they have the same records that are in their personnel file.
Awesome. And then some questions completely differently, I guess. How many employees does Steinhoffels have? And then a follow-up, how many Laserfiche users do you have?
Right now we're growing. So we have 745 employees today. I have 65 repository licenses. And that is the biggest cost of Laserfiche. It's not the program, it's the licensing, because licensing your managers is, you know, give or take $1,000 per seat.
So follow-up to that is, which Laserfiche products do you use?
We use them all. We use forms, we use quick fields, we use the repository, and we use workflow.
Great. And then I guess there's just one final question. How did you like Sage? Are companies considering the pros and cons now, and how it would link with Laserfiche?
I like Sage immensely. They do payroll and HRIS pretty well, and they're one of the few standalone systems. I mean, I've been scouring the world trying to find standalone systems, and TDS and Sage are about the only two games left in town. It's a good company. It's got some cons to working with it. It used to be more friendly, and not that they're not unfriendly, but getting to tech support used to be easier. It's now harder. But we call into tech support so rarely that it's not a detriment to us.
Okay, I think these are all the questions we have. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Linda, for such a wonderful presentation. As a reminder, everybody will get a recording of the webinar and slides by email after this. And make sure that you check out the Solution Exchange for more different ideas. So thank you, everybody.
Hey, Joanne?
Yes.
I was going to say, can I make one final comment to the group? They most certainly can call me if they've got specific questions. I'm happy to answer questions.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Take care, and thank you, everyone.
Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Bye-bye.